To the Point with Michael Williams.
Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico when it struck more than a week ago, wiping out supplies of food, water, and medicine, power out perhaps for many months to come to so many there. A struggle to get necessities for the more than 3 million people living in Puerto Rico. Good morning and welcome. The governor of Puerto Rico calling the devastation caused by the Category 4 hurricane the biggest catastrophe in Puerto Rico's history. Now there are concerns about getting humanitarian relief there. Joining me to discuss that and more, Juan Pagan. He is the president of the Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, which has been working to get supplies to Puerto Rico. And sir, we thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me here today.
Talk about the fact that you have, as you said to me just before we went on, you have loved ones there as well. Who are they? Where are they? How are they doing? Let's begin there.
That is correct. I do have 2 sisters. I have my brother. I have my mother, which is in a nursing home currently in one of the areas that was severely devastated. It's called the town of Levittown. Fortunately, the nursing home folks were not need to be evacuated because of the altitude that they are located. You know, it's a 2-story building, so therefore the patient's still doing well. I was able to communicate briefly, and everybody's doing fine in the measure that they could be without power and water.
Without power, do they have generators? We saw the tragedy in Hollywood for nursing home residents there. A dozen at latest count who died as a result of heat, no AC after Hurricane Irma. What's the situation for your mom mid and long term at that nursing home? How are they taking care of her? How old is your mom?
My mother is 92.
Bless her.
Bless her heart, you know, and suffering from dementia. At the same time, the nursing home was capable of having generators, and they are working because it's a 2-story building next to the beach. You know, the wind provides a comfortable, you know, quote-unquote temperature, if you want to call it, 87, 88 degrees, whatever will be. But they're able to do fine without ACs, air conditioning at this time.
So many are trying to get to their loved ones on the island or get them to Florida and beyond. Are you in that similar situation? Have you been able to get down there? Are you struggling to try to get them here?
Well, it's both. There are people trying to get down there, and what the advice we're giving to the chamber, to all the audience, is about, if you're going to go there, just don't get to check. If I understand if you're going to go and trying to get your mother, your father out of there, that's totally comprehensible. Now, if you're just going to go to visit and watch, don't do it.
Let's talk about supplies. Your organization working to get supplies in, but there's a supply bottleneck. How is the supply drive going, and what are you doing to get the supplies where they need to go in Puerto Rico? How frustrating is that right now?
You know, I'm glad you asked a question because, yes, there's a bottleneck at the airport. And fortunately now, I heard from the news yesterday, they finally named a general who is going to be coordinating the shipment and releasing the bottleneck. The bottleneck also, unfortunately, was caused by a planned strike of truck drivers that was done before the storm. And it so happened that the storm hit on the day that they were supposed to strike, and now they're claiming, well, you know, we're busy, we're hurting, we're helping our family. But in reality is that they have political agenda against the governor. You know, I'm not pro any party in Puerto Rico, but, you know, that's not the way to the people who can bring food, diesel, fuel to the rest of the island.
As we sit here today, we've heard about power out perhaps for 6 months in some area, food in short supply, water, clean water, making sure all of that is supplied or resupplied. What's the very latest you've heard about just how dire the situation is and where we go from here, or where we begin to go from here?
Well, one of the things we've been doing is that through our organization and the PR Chamber, you know, and the City of Green Acres, who has been very, very generous, allowing us to use the space until tomorrow, until yesterday, until Saturday, that we were able to use it. Then we're moving to another place to continue the collection.
How much have you collected so far in terms of supplies, and what kind of supplies?
You know, we have collected about, last Friday, we were able to ship 35,000 pounds, you know, of water, diapers for adults, children, canned goods, hygiene products, you know, for all. On Sunday, we were able to ship 70,000 pounds, again, through Miami and through Jacksonville.
In addition to that wonderful effort, would you generally advise those who are watching this broadcast to go to international aid organizations and do a contribution, a check or credit card to make sure that that aid gets there more quickly, in addition to the kind of wonderful efforts you're doing? What's the best way for people watching this broadcast to help?
Definitely. Right now, we have through the PR Chamber of Palm Beach, we have created one non-for-profit 501c3 with all the legal requirements that is called Fiesta de Pueblo / Disaster Relief Funding.
We'll get that on our website, by the way, for you at home, but give me the name one more time.
It's called Fiesta, Fiesta, de Pueblo, Pueblo, / Disaster Relief Funding, at TD Bank in Lake Worth. And all those proceeds, obviously, is going to go directly to the funding. There's no expenses involved with that.
How would you grade the Trump administration's response thus far to the devastating crisis unfolding in Puerto Rico? Candidly.
And I got to be very honest. We don't get involved in the political side of it, partisanism, any party, but we have to recognize that the recognition of the crisis in Puerto Rico was not done soon as it should have been. And now Puerto Rico is facing another issue, which could be a health crisis, because people are drinking water that is coming down from the mountain. You don't know what animals are dead up there. So contamination could be a big thing. Cholera could be something that could be present in the near future, and it could be something like Puerto Rico have to be isolated because of health concern.
The administration is rescinding an act that made it harder to get ships moving in as quickly as they'd like, the Jones Act, so they've waived that for now. The Pentagon bringing in a brass to start taking over some of the mobilization of the effort. In fact, Florida senators asking for even more of that. We'll talk about that later in the broadcast. What else should the Trump administration be doing? What else can it be doing? What else are you all asking it to do for what will be a long-term effort there?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because, one of the things on the Jones Act, yes, was a clear obstacle, but it was relief.
And the Jones Act, again, has to do with shipping and the red tape that goes in getting ships out.
But for Puerto Rico, was only allowed that exemption for 10 days. Hello. When Harvey came to Texas, was immediately lifted. When Irma threatened Florida, was lifted immediately with no ending in sight. So why Puerto Rico had to be only 10 days? Because we're looking here then at the financial gains. Because remember, the Jones Act, what it means for Puerto Rico is that everything is more expensive in anywhere with 15 to 20%. And even the goods that we were sending, they wanted to be taxed, even though they were donations.
There are going to be many discussions for months and really years to come about the kind of resupply and reconstruction effort. But as you look at it today, the most critical needs as you look at infrastructure, personal needs for people like your mom, what are they? How do individuals and how do governments, the Trump administration in this case, help lead that effort? If you were sitting in front of the president right now, how would you help write the outline for what we need in the next 3 to 6 months and beyond?
I would say priority will be medications that needs down there. Like the company I used to work for, Eli Lilly, was trying to send a shipment of insulin to the country. Well, that requires, by FDA requirements, it requires to be received and stored in a refrigerated environment.
So more cohesion on getting medical supplies.
And supplies. Then at the same time, the distribution that have to be across the whole island. That's what we're trying, with the shipment that we organized to Jacksonville, those were coordinated with the mayors of the island.
And you want to see that better coordination, which they're trying to start doing with some Pentagon involvement. Infrastructure, the electrical grid, without it, you're thrown into a pre-modern age. That's going to have to be a priority, but they're going to need help.
Yes, they are. They're going to need help to coordinate all that and get that bottleneck out of the ports and out of the airport.
And what about the cost of this? It's going to be many, many tens of billions of dollars. Puerto Rico already essentially bankrupt right now, so is going to have to turn to Washington and to the international community. How concerned are you about the bottleneck for funding there?
Well, that's a big concern, because immediately when the president was asked about the situation in Puerto Rico, the first thing he mentioned was, rather than being the well-being of the people, he mentioned about the debt that Puerto Rico still have to pay. So that was a priority concern, rather than sending relief. Hello, we would like to make sure that this gets taken care of the proper way.
There certainly has been an outpouring. Many of you in our audience have given your own outreach, your own money to help with what's going on there. We've heard from many of our viewers who have loved ones there. But the hurricanes brought a lot of attention to Puerto Rico, sadly, for all the wrong reasons right now. A recent poll showed only 54% of people in the United States know that Puerto Ricans are, in fact, United States citizens. And talk about that and how it plays into the kind of response and how it plays into the debate we're going to have about the response you believe will definitely be needed in the years to come.
Definitely so, and you bring that up, the fact is, for example, my father served in the Second War. My stepfather, he served in the Korean War. My father-in-law, he served in the Second War. I'm a Vietnam vet. My brother is also a veteran. So we all were, I was drafted. I received that letter. I still remember. Congratulations. You've been selected to serve in the best armed forces of the world. But at the same time, it's about, this is all American. This is, you know, yes, there's an ocean in between, but that ocean could be overcome easily by one of these big boats that gets over there quickly.
How do you make sure the attention is that which Harvey victims are receiving, which Irma victims are receiving? How do you make sure it's on a par with that?
Well, it's going to be shared about the voice that, unfortunately, Puerto Rico only have through social media. Because I can pick up the phone and call Senator Nelson. I can pick up the call and call Senator Rubio. You know, I'm a resident of Florida, so I've been here for the last 30 years. But now Puerto Rico doesn't have that option.
So you will, of course, be putting the heat on our U.S. senators here as well to make sure that they remember that, in fact, those are U.S. citizens down there, and it's going to demand, in your mind, a very cohesive U.S. response.
Definitely so, and that will be the only united.
There's also a concern about the ongoing exodus from Puerto Rico. Many tens of thousands of people have left there because of economic upheaval before now, because of Puerto Rico is essentially bankrupt. Many are resettling in Florida, particularly the Central Florida area, as a matter of fact, and many say many thousands more will look to leave Puerto Rico. What are you hearing about the next exodus from Puerto Rico when people are able to do so right now, people scrambling to get off the island? And what are your concerns about that as more and more people leave Puerto Rico and leave it perhaps even more economically disadvantaged than it is now, as the best and brightest try to leave?
Definitely so, you know, and this is kind of is a two-part answer. You know, the first one, you know, you mentioned this. A few months ago, the Chamber, we had a meeting with Governor Scott, and we were talking about the exodus of well-educated people from Puerto Rico coming to the U.S. His answer to me was, I'm not concerned about they're going to be consuming resources here because they come to work, they're educated. You know, as a matter of fact, when you have in Puerto Rico a guy with a bachelor degree who's selling hamburgers at McDonald's, you know, that brings a big flag. You know, so now what's going to happen, you're going to have both the non-educated and the educated coming over and also bringing their parents that are in the 70s, 80s, that it's going to need help here. So that's going to, in a way, it might create a little bit of a burden, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to help more and create a better infrastructure in Puerto Rico that we're able to resolve that to the level that that exodus is not needed.
But places like Florida need to be ready for that because as U.S. citizens, they have every right to come over here and to resettle here. And places like Florida must be ready for that exodus if indeed it comes in those kind of numbers.
You know, it's just like somebody went from Indiana to Missouri, somebody went from Florida to Georgia. Doesn't really matter. It's the same thing very quickly.
Final quick thought. Final quick thought from you, sir.
Well, you know, that will be, this is about helping our fellow Americans. This is helping people who really need the basic needs that we give for granted. You know, we're talking about water, we're talking about food, we're talking about medications. Power. You know, so we're talking about people who need insulin, people who is in dialysis, that need those services, and they need to be transported out of the island without price gouging by airlines, by making sure that they can come up and get the service, medical services and other services that they need. But I thank you very much, you know, for being able to be here.
Continuing to put the focus on this crisis, it is one that will continue to demand all of our attention. We wish your family the best. Our particular thoughts with your mom as well. I know that you've had many sleepless nights. Juan Pagan, president of the Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County. We thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Look forward to having you back. Coming up next, our roundtable looks at the storm and the political equation as well in Florida.